my channel. Hi, I'm Anusha and I'm currently in my first year of medicine at King's College London, and this is a series of videos that I've made to do with Bmat prep. Now in this video I'm going to be going through section 2 of the exam and how I went about preparing for it, as well as some of the tips that I learnt along the way that will hopefully be useful for those of you that are preparing to sit it. Again, I would like to apologise for any Bmat flashbacks this might bring back, but it's all for a good cause. Next subject we have is biology. Now the one thing to note is that it covers mainly human biology rather than plant biology, but sometimes it can ask you cycle questions such as the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the nutrient cycle. So to ensure that you don't miss out on any subjects, make sure that you check out the section 2 Assumed Knowledge Guide. It is literally your plug for all of the topics, so make sure that you're always checking and referring back to that. If biology is a topic that you took for A level, then you might not spend as much time on it because you'll already be learning stuff. So what I would advise is to prioritise topics that you haven't looked at all. So for example, for AQA, we did not cover the kidneys at all. So when it came around to looking at Bmat and I found out that insulin and the kidneys was covered, I made sure that that was a topic I looked at first because I hadn't looked at it at GCSEs and we weren't there yet in terms of the A level specification. That's why the Assumed Knowledge Guide is so good, because it puts all of the content together for you and you don't need to go around looking at all of the different specifications and trying to see what you need to learn. The best tip that I can give for you in terms of revision is to use a method that works best for you, because everyone works differently and has an individual approach to revision. For example, something you might have done at GCSEs, you might have changed it for A levels, or you might have done something at A levels that you wish you did at GCSEs. So do what works best for you. Some people do visual learning, which is what I do. Some people do written learning. Some people like to do questions, so it's all about having the right balance. Next up is chemistry. Now for chemistry there are usually two subset question types that you can have. You can have factual recall and you can have mathematical calculations. By factual recall I mean things such as trends in reactivity, electronic configurations, flame test colours, MRs of certain elements and compounds, just because when it comes to the exam it will save you so much time. If any questions do involve a periodic table, that will also be supplied to you, so bear that in mind. When it comes to the mathematical questions for chemistry, I'd give you the same advice that I gave for physics, which is to memorise all of the formulae that you may be required, things such as moles equals mass over MR, as well as equations such as those for atom economy and percentage yield, just because in the exam that can save so much time for you and you can spend more time on the questions that you might be finding more difficult. When you're revising all of this content and you're learning perhaps some of the topics that bridge between GCSE and A level, it will help you in the long run for the exams that you'll be sitting at the end of your 2 years as well, for example IB or A levels. So it also allows you to just get ahead in your revision. Resources, again, I definitely recommend the ISC medical book. The 700 Bmat questions was really good because it had a wide range of questions in terms of level of difficulty. I'd recommend the Bmat past paper questions as well. The last of the 4 topics, but certainly not the least, maths. For maths, the one thing I'd say is make sure you familiarise yourself with equations, being able to rearrange them, subbing things in, because that is something that will really come in handy not only in the maths section but also in the other 3 sections. So you're almost killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It really depends on the subjects you took for A level, but make sure not to neglect any of the 4 topics when it comes to revision. Spatial reasoning is something that I mentioned in the section 1 video, but I'm going to mention it here again because I think it's so useful. There could well be a 3D shape question or a net question asking about a cube, for example, and you want to have a visual representation in front of you. What I did was I had a rubber in the exam and I got a net question, so I drew all the sides of the net on my rubber, so then I was able to have a 3D representation in front of me, and I just found that really useful in terms of visualizing it and being able to rotate the shape. But you might be someone who finds it easier to just look at it in 2D form, so it's really dependent on the person. Learn your times tables. I know that's such a basic thing, but it's shocking to see how many people can get the most difficult maths questions right, but then when it comes to times tables they struggle simply because they've forgotten. So learn your times tables at least up to 12 and be able to recall those quite quickly. I'd also say practice your mental maths and conversions, so again between fractions, decimals and percentages, as well as being able to convert between units, so centimetres to millimetres to nanometres if necessary. These units are commonly used in the science topics mentioned as well, so again you'll be able to benefit from learning that. Practice, 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 because while you're practicing it will highlight perhaps some of the topics that you're weaker on, and so you can go back and revise those in blocks of questions. And if maths isn't a topic that you took for A level and you're feeling quite unfamiliar with it, I'll plug some useful resources down below for some good GCSE questions as well as some bridging questions between GCSE and A level. Now there's no perfect way to revise for Bmat section 2, and by no means are my tips the only way to revise, But again, like section 2, I've got a list of general tips that I think will be useful for some of you when preparing for section 2. Practice, practice, practice. Use the ISC medical book, the 700 Bmat question book, use the past paper questions, but make sure to use the most recent ones as full mocks. Make sure to use CGP past paper questions, perhaps those will be useful for you, or textbook questions that you can find. And I'll put some more links for some resources down below. Learn your equations. Now I know for a fact in all 4 subjects there are equations that are worth memorising. For example, in physics that could be electricity and SUVAT. In chemistry it will be moles, atom economy, percentage yield. In biology it could be things such as calculating simple percentages. And in maths it will be the general maths formulae and equations, as well as being able to rearrange them. Recognise the questions that you might find more difficult earlier on, and then do the questions that you might find easier and quicker to do. What I did was at the beginning of the paper I flicked through, and then I recognised the questions that I could do almost instantly, and I did those, and then gradually I went back to the questions that were more and more difficult so that I could reassure myself. One thing about Bmat, it's all about focusing on memorising the details, because there could be questions that could be the easiest questions in the world if you memorize the content. So I can't emphasize this enough. Know your content and know the formulae. If anything, just look through the assumed knowledge guide if that's all the preparation that you do, because as long as you know what topics are going to come up, you can prepare yourself accordingly. But yeah, those are all the tips that I have for Bmat section 2. All I have to say left is best of luck for the people that are sitting their exam, and I hope that it all goes well. I'm hoping that you found the video insightful and that there were some useful tips to take away for those of you that are preparing for the exam. If you did find the video helpful, please make sure to leave a thumbs up. And if you're liking the content for my Bmat prep series so far, or for my channel, please make sure to subscribe for more content. I've got my section 3 video coming out very soon. I've also got more information about my channel on my Instagram, which is at my GKT monologues, if you want to check it out. And yeah, stay tuned.